I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us to speak with you today. So my name is Rhiannon. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the co-director of the Australian Human Rights Commission's IncludeAbility, now known as Equality at Work project. And I'm joined today by our wonderful ambassador, Ricki Spencer, and our wonderful project partner, Michelle Barton, who's the CEO of YouthWorX NT. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are all coming from today. And for me, that's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I'd like to pay my deep respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people here on the call today. We recognise that this land was never ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And thank you so much for inviting us. We really are delighted to be here to speak about the Commission's work, the Australian Human Rights Commission, work in employment equality for people with disability and building accessible and inclusive workplaces. So I have some slides. Would it be helpful for me to share the slides as well? Just let me know if this works. Actually, might not do that. Sorry. From beginning and share. Okay, can you see this? Great.
Yes, indeed.
Wonderful. So who are we? The Australian Human Rights Commission is Australia's national human rights institution. We promote and protect human rights, including those under the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which Australia ratified in 2007. Our work is led by Disability Discrimination Commissioner Rosemary Caius, who also serves as Vice Chair of the UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disability. As Rosemary says, we need to challenge ableism and structures in Australian workplaces that are preventing people with disability from progressing in their chosen professions. And the Commission also investigates and conciliates complaints under the Disability Discrimination Act, including those related to employment. The right to work is a fundamental human right. Article 27 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability affirms that people with disability have the right to work on an equal basis with others in environments that are open and inclusive and accessible. And as we know, employment is a gateway to many other rights: economic security, health, social connection, and participation. It is a social determinant of health and well-being. Yet people with disability are twice as likely to be unemployed, and 1 in 4 who report discrimination say it comes from their employer. Discriminatory attitudes and inaccessible systems continue to be a major barrier to meaningful employment and career progression. So this is why the IncludeAbility project was set up. So the IncludeAbility project, now known as Equality at Work, was created to address barriers to employment for people with disability. And it has 4 key components. These are an ambassador and advisory group, employer network, an online knowledge hub, and pilot employment programs. Leadership through lived experience is absolutely central to our project. Now, ambassador and expert advisory groups are made up of people with disability, as are most of our project team at the Commission. The initiative is co-designed with people with disability and uses lived experience to inform employer practice and build inclusive workplace cultures. People like Ricki have been instrumental in designing the project. Since 2020, we've worked with several proactive employers and service providers to pilot inclusive employment models, build capacity of employers, and grow organisations that can successfully recruit and retain people with disability. Some of the biggest barriers that individuals face when accessing equal employment are attitudes about disability, recruitment and onboarding practices and processes, embedded organisational structures, processes and reporting, business as usual, a culture of not disclosing or not feeling like one can identify or not asking about disability, and this idea of finding the right person for the job. Human rights in employment means embedding dignity, equality, and respect into every aspect of work. It includes leading by lived experience, leading with lived experience, equal access to employment. Like everybody has a fair chance to get and keep a job, regardless of their background, identity, or circumstance. Employment is a human right. The elements of equal access to employment are non-discrimination, hiring and promotion decisions are free from bias and ableism. Workplace adjustments. Workplace adjustments provide accommodations to remove barriers so that anyone who would like to work can work and participate and thrive in their roles. And employees can find the best person for the role. Fair wages. People with disability are paid equal wages for equal work. And career advancement, enabling everyone to grow, succeed, and thrive. There you go. We've seen that when employers take a human rights-based approach, centering lived experience, co-design, and reasonable adjustments, they build more inclusive, respectful, and productive workplaces. And these are the very same principles that underpin the positive duty. The positive duty under the Anti-Discrimination Act is about being proactive. It's about creating environments that are safe, inclusive, and free from discrimination before harm occurs. We see in our work that employers often want to do the right thing, but don't always know how. Inclusive employment strategies are a powerful way to meet positive duty obligations. And when you care about your workers, this is how you show it. You lead with lived experience, you build leadership capability, you make reasonable adjustments, you co-design policies and practices, you embed cultural safety, and you continuously learn and improve. And these just aren't compliance measures, they're acts of intentional leadership. And so next, I'm going to invite our wonderful ambassador, Ricki Spencer, to speak about their experiences and the work that they're currently doing. So over to you, Ricki.
Wow, what a wonderful group of people. And although I can't see many of you, and that's okay, but I just wanted to say, well, thank you so much for having this program highlighted. And, I always start providing my message stick of love and knowledge, sharing coming your way. So, for someone like myself who has a number of invisible and physical disabilities, being 57, um, you know, uh, gender diverse, trans, um, from adoptions, all that kind of combinate, and you put that intersectional positional um, position out in the workforce, it's very difficult sometimes to be given opportunities. But I am one of the privileged because, I've been fortunate enough to have an education, been able to work during my work life, spending 30 years in social work and in teaching and now in public health and equity. So what I'm very excited about is that within this program of includability, as it says, it's about giving everybody, the affordability to have a quality of life and meaningful contribution. Because we know when it comes to well-being, oh, that's a bit better. When it comes to well-being, we know that work can give people that sort of real innate feeling of contributing and feeling valued for who they are, whatever cultural background you are, whatever kind of where you're coming from the world. We know that even being given that affordability of 1 hour paid work gives you that sense of identity. And putting back my old sociologist hat on, when we introduce each other around the world, and places, we still say, Hi, my name is Ricki. Oh, now imagine if you have a disability and you don't, because everyone around you, you have seen people say, hi, and this is difficult because where do you position yourself? You become invisible in a world that really does value positions and titles. So how do we get around that? Yeah? How do we challenge that? And I know I'm with the wonderful people because of the work you all do. And one of the things that I have taken on board to do out of my own back, and it's, I preface that so saying that this is not, I'm not funded. I've just done this voluntarily, is I've established a national First Nations peer health consumer advisory learning space. Very proud to say 20 members across Australia, I've taken them on a journey, and around 85% have gotten paid work from this after one session with me. And it's not just me, it's just providing that opportunity and space and giving people that affordability of being themselves and validating who they are as human beings. And that group that I've established, proud to say, we have two people from the Northern Territory. I can say Uncle Frank Curtis, as some of you may know, a respected elder, who has a number of medical conditions and dialysis, is now one of our speakers. And he'll be part of my First Nations, my Medicare advisory group, where we'll be looking at really establishing, making sure that our family and friends in the Northern Territory are represented adequately with any changes to healthcare and digital health in Australia. So this is something, and I should preface by saying, out of my membership I've created, 85% have an acquired brain injury. A percentage have been incarcerated. 100% have a disability. And isn't it wonderful that we can champion work and create work? And I filled the gap. And I hope this takes off. I hope this will grow. And I've had so much interest now from people saying, oh, we'd love to get involved. And my answer is just open the doors. Yes, please. Every health board, I want to see people employed with disabilities, advisory, gift cards or honorarium, because the true voice of people with accessibility and accessing is nuggets of gold. And whether someone is verbal, uses their language through voice, whether they use a communication device, is all rich gold because it provides us an insight into how we can make our health systems more accessible for all. And you might say, Ricki, why are you talking about health equity? This is about employment. Well, this is my bias here, everyone, my conscious bias. If we can get health right, we can then build on other structures in society. We talk about the housing crisis that we all know, and if people know me, they know I write a lot about this. And I always say, whenever I go, I sit on 38 boards across Australia, and I always preface by saying, shelter is a human fundamental right. We must get that right. We must invest. But I also say that we must invest in health equity and opportunities for some form of employment. And you would be amazed at how many people I speak now across Australia are very grateful for 1 hour's employment. Do you know why? They have a title. They are proud to say, I'm a consumer advisor. I sit on a board. And for the first time in their lives, for some of them, they are not seen as an Indigenous survivor of incarceration, domestic violence, a victim. They are seen as a knowledge contributor to change. And this is what it's all about, this program, about includeability. It's changing the framing of how we see people with disabilities as othering, as people who need, call them, they need support. No, no, no. Everyone has the ability to contribute. Every knowledge is as valued. We come from different perspectives, and this is what we do. Now, people might say, well, Ricki, a lot of how can you embed these in, there's so much complexities. Well, this is where I give back to my community because I use my skills of data sovereignty, understanding disclosure, the power disclosure, and I give them an easy read, in easy formation slides so that they can learn and take that in. And then when they go and sit on various advisory committees or consultations, they take these tools to help them through. Then part of that is also the ongoing mentorship so that they come back as a group. We talk about the experience. We say how we can do these things better, how we can improve that service. And then whatever organization who has them in a consultation, or whether it's a one-off or whether it's through a series, so that they always come back and tell me how wonderful they were, so happy to have somebody come in with a fresh voice who really spoke from the heart and really talked about, how they can make change in a positive way. And that's why I'm so excited. And I have to preface, say, look, the way I'm speaking with my autism, I sometimes go a bit, haywire. But you know what? I speak from the heart. Um, Anything to help my people to feel connected. I've worked with people in my space who have never ever been given an opportunity before. So we've done their bios, we've started them with LinkedIn's. We are trying to give them a sense of identity that will change everything. And I'm very excited. Look, I'm privileged because I'm lucky to be part of the NDIS First Nations reference groups who travel around Australia, meeting people. I'm a people person. So I would love to meet you all. I'm coming to Northern Territory, I think, next year, because it's all about connecting. And I believe in community connectors. That's my bit of nuggets of gold to you, is to consider how can you apply community connector in my space, in my team, in my organization, with our young people. How can we get them engaged? And I know we're going to hear from a wonderful speaker to talk about the wonderful work that they do. But let us first say that let's embrace every voice is valued. When I do consumer work across Australia, I love working with young people and the older people put together, because from that space, every voice matters. Every viewpoint matters. And we really try and dispel this idea that you have to be a certain age or you have to have a certain qualification, to contribute to the well-being of society and changing the health and better screening access. And that's why I left my details if you're interested, because I'm involved in so many projects. And obviously cancer screening is one of my passion areas, to increase the rates of screening. I'm also interested in how do we bring services to remote and regional spaces, and I'm of the belief of having mobile. Uh, let's bring wraparound services to people in communities. Let's use community events to bring things together. And when I talk about that, I think, wouldn't it be wonderful that when we have things like a screening day, we could also have perhaps employer day coming along with it. Let's see if we can build this kind of interconnectedness where people, can challenge. I can talk forever, and I don't know, because it's all about everyone today. But thank you. I hope that's fine, Rhiannon, because you could
That
tell
was
me tell me when I.
wonderful, Ricki.
But
Thank
people
you so
can reach
much.
out. But
Yeah,
all of you, thank you for all being here and listening, because I don't want to cry, but I really feel overwhelmed. Thank you.
thank you so much, Ricki. And Ricki has been absolutely wonderful in and instrumental in developing this project. They were on our co-design group and helped us set up the entire thing. And we're so grateful for you and our other ambassadors and EAG members in shaping this program. I think you made such wonderful points about reflecting on the power of voices and the experience of people with disability in reimagining and shaping our world, and how we all have a role to play in this. And I think it's really great that you mentioned health and other structures, because it's all connected, and it's all a gateway to other human rights as well. And this is all about progressive rights realization across a
And
range of
also,
areas and
Rhiannon,
attributes.
for all you people,
Yeah,
if you have a consultation, please consider offering certificates of thank you. The
that was
people
a
I have
great
met
suggestion.
across Australia love it. because to me, it's not tokenistic, because a lot of the people I work with have never, ever been given a certificate of attainment. Maybe they've never finished the year 12 qualification. And for you to validate, even if it's for 1 hour consultation, please use your privilege and say, would you like a letter of thank you? We would love to give you that thank you for the wonderful contribution that you have made. And that can start the journey for somebody to put on their LinkedIn, put on their resume, to stand tall and say, I helped change something. Thank you.
Wonderful. And that is a beautiful segue actually to Michelle at YouthWorX NT, because Ricki, I'm not sure if we ever told you, but this was Ricki's suggestion when we did the co-design workshops, that we could have a letter of thanks and appreciation or a certificate from our Disability Discrimination Commissioner, Rosemary Case. And then, so when we did some workshops in Darwin over the last couple of years, but the ones this year, we had two remarkable young men co-facilitate with us, and we were able to provide them with a letter of thanks from the from the Disability Discrimination Commissioner, and it was really important. And obviously they were remunerated as well, but I think that was a really powerful gesture. But on that note, I will hand over to you, Michelle. Michelle is going to speak about employment experiences in Darwin, and YouthWorX NT have been a wonderful project partner of ours for the last almost 4 years, and we've really loved collaborating with them. But over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rhi. Thank you, Ricki. I really look forward to connecting with you when you do come to the Territory next year. And great suggestion for those certificates and letters. I've written a note down around that. I love it. Thank you. So for those of you who don't know, yes, my name is Michelle, CEO at YouthWorX NT. We are a local grassroots youth organisation based here in the Greater Darwin region, and as of next week, also Alice Springs. Essentially, we work alongside young people aged 15 to 25 to help them gain skills, confidence, and experience to essentially enter meaningful employment, whatever that might be for each individual young person, really about finding the right fit for them. Through that too, we also have a really great network, strong network with employers and local industry. And so for us, across Darwin, we see that employers genuinely want to get this right. I really feel that employers care about inclusion. They very much mean well. Just seems like some, put my hand up for us as well, still unsure maybe how to turn that intent into real confident action. As Rhi said, over the last few years, we have been funded through a federal grant focused on building employer confidence to employ people with disability. In our case, the whole project's been very focused on young people. And so through this Connect Diversibility project that we've partnered with Rhi and the team at Equality at Work to deliver face-to-face training in Darwin and Palmerston. And we've now reached more than 150 employers, managers, supervisors across a wide range of industries that have come along to this training. And I mean, the training's evolved over that time as well, really to suit, I guess, the local context and the needs of our local business. Training really is there to build the confidence and capability of employers, really, I guess, helping them to see how they could create meaningful opportunities for young people with disability and look to close the gap between the workforce participation, or close the gap of the workforce participation from people without disability and those with disability. And what we hear from employers most often through that training and the other matching work that we would do is really around that confidence gap. They're afraid of asking the wrong question, saying the wrong thing, maybe not having the right supports in place already. But when they then meet young people with disability and hear their lived experience, it's like something shifts for them. And as Rhi was just talking about earlier, during the last lot of training that we ran here in Darwin, it was earlier this year, we invited 2 young local men with disability to come and share their stories. And it completely changed the energy in the room at every training event. Like you could just see the light bulb moments happening for those employers. And both young men chose to stay on for the entire training sessions and almost ended up co-facilitating the training with Rhi and the team. And, you know, from the young people we would work alongside, the message for them is just as strong. So they, as Ricki said, they want to work, they want to contribute, they want to belong. But the barriers they face often are invisible. You know, it's those inaccessible recruitment processes, assumptions about their capability, or workplaces that just maybe haven't thought through adjustments that they could actually provide. One of the young men that spoke at the training, he is a team member of ours, and he shared that his experience had been walking into see potential employers. They would see his physical disability, and he felt he could just see their face changed, that they just saw his limitations rather than his capacity. And so for us, a couple of years ago, maybe a little less, we made a conscious decision that we really needed to lead by example in this space. We really needed to walk the talk. We couldn't just have this project and support employers to build their confidence. We really needed to actively do that ourselves. And so this young man that I've just mentioned, he was a participant in one of our programs, and he really wanted to do some work experience in our office. So he did, and we employed him, and it was his first ever paid job. He was 18, a bit over a year outside of school. And during his interview, he disclosed that he had a mild intellectual disability. And this was not something that was immediately obvious when you engage with this young man. And so honestly, we didn't fully stop to think about what this might mean for him and for us in the workplace. And during one of our early, regular check-ins with him, he reminded us of this, and it was such a turning point for us. We really sat down and revisited what accommodations he might need, how we could make sure that our communication with him was more accessible, how we could brief our team really respectfully about that, so that we were all on the same page, and how we could keep checking in with him around what was working, and where we could continue to do better and improve. And it was such a great reminder for us that inclusion is a continuous conversation. It's not just this one-time act that, suddenly you're there. And for us, the workplaces that we see that are doing this really well are the ones that partner early. They listen deeply, and they provide that really individualized, responsive support to all employees, because we know that we all learn differently, and we all communicate differently. And these employers would then build inclusion into every stage of their workplace, for employees. So from recruitment to mentoring. And I believe by doing that, you really see the benefits in retention, in morale, and within the culture in the workplace. And so for me, really, that's what positive duty looks like in practice. It's it's not an exercise in compliance. It's that leadership in action. It's about creating those environments where inclusion really is built in. It's not just bolted on to the end. And really, our experience would be that when employers act early and they really lean into that value of lived experience and embed accessibility from the start, they're not just meeting their obligations, but they really are leading the way to those inclusive workplaces. So, and Jasmine, your stat right at the start, 21% of the population are people with lived experience of disability. I guess that's, again, really, when you said that, I sat there and thought, oh, okay, how are we doing in that? We're a firm believer that diverse workplaces are great workplaces. They're far more productive and safe and enjoyable and obviously inclusive. So, I think that's a really good reminder for all of us too, that we should be reflecting our communities in the work that we do. So, yeah, thank you. Back to you, Rhi.
Thanks, Michelle. I think that that's a wonderful way to finish off our presentation and maybe invite some questions now. Thank you so much. Inclusion is a continuous conversation. Love it. Thank you so much. Back to you, Jasmine, and the group, if anyone has any questions for us or would like to discuss anything further.
Yep, thanks, Rhi. Thank you, Ricki, and also Michelle. I think we'll just open up for questions now, and then we'll perhaps do some, a bit of a summary and maybe next steps after this. So for those of you that are here, if you want to know more about the IncludeAbility sort of project, I think this is a good space to sort of start talking about it, but also I think what sort of systems change happened within these organizations. Maybe Michelle, you could share some of your insight in that space of, how you got to where you're at the moment, but feel free for those of you here that have got questions.
That's a really good point, Jasmine. How we got to here. Look, I mean, I think this is a journey YouthWorX has been on for quite a number of years. For those of you who know the organisation, CEO before me, Liz Reed, had physical disability or has physical disability, and he's an incredibly passionate advocate for people with disability in the workplace, in community, thriving. And she really pivoted the organisation towards offering, I guess, support specifically for young people with disability prior to my time. But it's something that I guess we've just really embraced and continued to build on. And, I hate the word, but it continues to be a journey for us. It's not oh, wow, look at that, we've made it. Not by any stretch of the imagination have we made it. So, yeah, it really continues to be a journey. And I think for us, we consider ourselves a youth organisation first and foremost. And so I think, therefore, too, that means we're open for all young people. We don't consider ourselves a disability organisation. We would have young people from detention coming in our doors, and young people who might be homeless, and young people with disability, and young people from just down the road. So therefore, it's that safe space for all young people to come and be themselves.
Thanks, Michelle. I think the point that I'm taking from you quite clearly, which is actually our first minimum standard for positive duty in the NT, is intentional leadership. So that intentional leadership really drives the whole organizational culture moving forward for that transformation you're looking at. And I know I've got wonderful Sarah Skopulis here, who's got your hand up. And I want to just acknowledge Sarah coming from HBA, helping people achieve. And I just want to quote something that Sarah said in an event that I attended last week? Yes, just this week, sorry, on Tuesday, October Business Month. And I think, Sarah, the poignant point that you made was that it's not about KPIs, it's about the outcomes that we need to really need to put our finger on. And I'm saying this in the context of the NT, where we've got the employability strategy 24-27. And, it's all part of what we need to sort of embed within our organizational context if you're within public service, but also you can use that strategy for internal purposes. But that point that Sarah made, it's not about the KPIs that you need to sort of really, put your finger on, but what sort of outcomes are you trying to achieve in terms of that transformation piece? And with that, I'll hand over to Sarah.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask a question actually from the Equality at Work. What were the beg my pardon, percentage of success, and what were the lessons that you learned from the successes and the unsuccessful placements? Do you have that information available?
Yeah, well, we're
Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Sarah. And yes, I absolutely agree. Intentional leadership, and that was one of the findings from the evaluation of the first phase of includeability, was that leadership buy-in and a culture of support and learning was absolutely critical for success and inclusive processes and workplaces. But so we're currently in pilot implementation stage right now. So we've got 7 pilots that are just commencing as part of our program. But with our sorry if this is a little bit complicated, but with our previous phase, which was includeability, and that was from 2020 to 2023, we ran 2 pilots, one in Perth and one in the Illawarra region of New South Wales. And that had an 86% success rate, which is really positive. And we utilized quite innovative and tailored approaches like customized employment and job carving as well. And that involved the Perth pilot involved working with YouthWorX and Good Sammy, and the purpose of that was to create employment pathways out of closed or segregated employment settings into open employment settings. And then the Illawarra one was focused for people who had acquired disability and were returning to work, and it was like a coalition of small employers, and we were really exploring the impact of place and place-based initiatives and employers to be able to support one another in those situations. But key learnings, oh my goodness, we've got a few, but we have a whole evaluation on this, which I can link you, which is really great. But one of our key learnings was engagement at multiple levels of the organization simultaneously. So we found that our project through the pilots, that we would engage with the CEO or the C-suite, and then we'd work with an intermediary and specialist employment provider like YouthWorX NT or the Disability Trust or another, and they would support both the employee and the organisation as well. So we would engage at the top, and then depending on the organisation, but executive level right down to the shop front or store front, and provide training as well for colleagues and co-workers as well. So it's really about bringing the entire organisation along the journey. But that support from the top was really key and critical. We learnt that co-design, authentic co-design, is hard to achieve, to be honest, but really necessarily and important. And so this phase, we've taken those learnings, and we're putting much greater resources and emphasis into co-design and really being led by lived experience, because it has just such a powerful impact. And just quickly, the other things that we saw were, like you mentioned, KPIs, rethinking KPIs as a measure of performance and looking at outcomes and engagement. And then also looking at, so many organizations have KPIs linked to their funding, linked to their adjustments. And so kind of separating those things out and looking at adjustments from like a centralized budget. Might be getting too into the technical things here, but yeah, rethinking recruitment and ways of working, embedding accountability through networks, having things like a disability action plan and a reasonable adjustment policy, disability employee networks, and then looking at leadership and career progression, and new things like, or innovative things like customized employment and workplace adjustment passports. And that's one of the key focus areas of our current phase is adjustment passports, leadership and career progression. Not sure if that answered your question, Sarah. I went all over the place. Sorry about that.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Talk for days. Thank you.
Rhi, just only because you mentioned it, the adjustment passports, can you just elaborate on that for everyone's knowledge and understanding?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So many organisations, and this was a recommendation from the Disability Royal Commission as well, especially for the Australian Public Service, many organisations are looking at creating what they're calling workplace adjustments passports for their organisation, and that is a tool that is owned by the individual and their manager or their organisation. It depends on the organisation, but the idea is to put the person first, be very person-centred and person-led and really rights-based, where the individual can write down their needs and their barriers and their support needs and what their adjustments are. And then this tool, some organisations are creating a very fancy tech solution. Others, it's a simple Word document that outlines their need and their adjustments. And then they can take that wherever they go. So they can take that, if it's a large organisation with different services and sections, that stays with them to different parts of the organisation if they move their position or they receive a promotion or they progress in their career, so that it's pretty much so the individual doesn't have to have the same conversation with every new manager or every team or wherever they are about their adjustment and their needs and their barriers. But it's they have this piece, this tool, this resource that is theirs. It's controlled by them, and it says what they need and what. It's like an agreement of sorts. But yeah, it's a big spectrum at the moment what different organizations are trialing, from a Word document to an AI app that's very fancy.
Right. Thanks, Rhi. Are there other questions? Right. Yeah, Ricki, or you have an observation to share?
Just a quick one. Sorry, it's just one of my research projects. I'm with Professor Bindi at Federation Uni, and we're developing a tool for social workers using AI technologies for students to learn better with mob, and I'm just thinking about that. This is something that I guess the Human Rights Commission space could look at. Maybe how can we use AI technology in the future, because it's there now, that we can assist like your workforce, how to work, how to use language, how to give instructions, how to give feedback, how to address misinformation, miscommunication in the workplace. And this is something that I'm also trialing with my people I'm working with, how to use ChatGPT to formulate an email, how to address things that they're not sure, how to clarify. We need to not be afraid or poo-poo things like ChatGPT. I know in the academia space, I know it's a bit problematic. I see this as a wonderful tool for people with disabilities to be engaging, to be part of the journey. So sorry about interrupting you all, but I just wanted to share that little bit of a nugget of gold, because I think it's gold. Sometimes general academia says, oh, this is bad, this is cheating. For people in my community, it's giving them a choice to be part of life. People are now with disabilities learning to use ChatGPT to write applications for work, to be able to redo their resumes with pride and not be ashamed. So I'm all for using AI technology to help our people with disabilities gain a level footing ground in workspaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricki. That really goes to the point of equality of opportunity and how AI can sort of boost that. And I think just coming from the
Definitely.
perspective of the Northern Territory and even how we draft context of legislation. So, for example, reasonable accommodation or regional adjustments are couched as special needs. And from my perspective, it's not a special need when you're talking to a person that really requires or needs that, and we need to rethink that, because the narrative that we're putting out there is that we're providing for special needs when it's actually a need. So even the drafting aspect of how we think about our legislative provisions is really important in terms of the interface to the other side. Are there any other questions, or does anyone want to share what you have, I guess you're doing at your workplace that's working, that sort of aligns with what we has talked about?
While there's some thinking, can I jump in with one other thing? I should have mentioned, or maybe I mentioned it earlier, but we have a suite of resources on the Human Rights Commission website that are very useful, could be very useful for all sorts of topics, from reasonable adjustments to targeted recruitment to whether or not to identify in the workplace, and all sorts of things geared for both employees and employers.
Oh, Rhiannon, maybe just mention too, sorry, darling, to butt in, mentoring tips. I know that the Human Rights Commission are really good at providing even workshops that to tailor if people want to know. Thank you.
Oh, yes, good one. Thanks, Ricki. Yeah, we do provide training and workshops as well. So for organisations like the ones we did in the NT with Michelle and Aaron and Lyle and co, because it really is about building capability and within society and with employers. So yes, we do offer training, and we've got an e-learn module. Mentoring, so incredibly important. Ricki and I had a conversation about this the other day, didn't we? Yeah, and so it's a mandate of ours to raise awareness and provide education about human rights in Australia. So we're very open to continuing this conversation and providing support where we can.
Thank you, Rhi. Just taking note of time, are there any questions from our audience here today? I don't see any hands up, or is there a hand up there? Oh yeah, two hands up. Nikki.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you for the presentation, Rhi and Ricki. That was really great. Ricki, I guess my question is, when are you planning to come to the Northern Territory? You said you already were. So when were you thinking about that?
Darling, I would come tomorrow if my health was better. But I think from the group, the NDIS reference group, are looking at early next year. So I'd love to meet a lot of you and network, and you to meet all the other people from the disability reference group, because you get a lot of rich insight, because we come from communities, we talk. And of course, one of the conversations is work. What does work mean? Everybody has, whether it's voluntary, paid or unpaid, it means so much to people to feel valued.
Yeah.
You are more disability, if that makes sense, that you are also part of a different group. So I can't wait, Nikki, to meet you and other wonderful people. And I can't wait also in the people I've connected. If any of you ever want to speak to someone with disabilities, I know through Rhiannon has the pool of people to even have because what I always say to people, and I'm sorry for bumping in Rhiannon, is, it's not just about pay, but even giving people that learned opportunity to come to your workplace, even online, to speak for 15 minutes is an enriching experience, because they are gaining a skill to talk about disclosure, learning experience. And then even if you're unable to afford to pay, even the fact, oh, well, that's my boss, even a letter to thanking them or a certificate, thank you, their workplace really appreciated that. And then they can add that onto their resume, that they were able to do a presentation in a workplace to talk about challenges or modifications or easy read, or dare I say, use of ChatGPT to communicate for tools. Yeah, I hope that helps Nikki a bit.
No,
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you. Because we support people who have women and gender diverse people have problems in the workplace, and that's our role. And so we're obviously trying to look at, you know, building our knowledge base as well. And thank you for that. And Rhiannon, you said obviously you ran that training last year. When are you planning to do that training again?
I'd hand that over to Michelle to answer.
Michelle, when are we doing this training again?
That's a great question.
It's in the
Ricki.
pipeline.
Yeah, it is. We've been in conversation with the team around when we next can get them up here and how we can maybe look to develop the model a bit more to make it more sustainable rather than bringing them up every time. Can we look at being able to localize it and have it up here? So we will certainly, I will keep you posted, promise.
Yeah, I'll reach out, Michelle. I've got some ideas about something happening next year, so it might be able to coincide. Thank you. That's me. Stop hogging the floor, but thank you.
No, Nikki, can you maybe also, darling, sorry, but if you have people, anyone here listening, you have Indigenous people who want to become health advisors or want to learn, please get in contact with me. I'd be more than happy to take them on. Because as we're speaking, I'm now getting people, universities approaching me, so it might be scope to even be able to pay people eventually. So I take on everyone. There's no barrier.
Yeah,
so
great.
reach out, darling, to me.
Thanks, Ricki.
Thank you. I'm just going by the hand system. So I'll go with Sid first and then Sarah.
Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate all of you. As a mayor of Barton Regional Council, we actually oversee the largest local government area in the Northern Territory. We directly don't get involved in operations, but like listening to this actually enables us to have policies that could potentially support. So thank you very much. And Ricki, Frank Curtis is a great Barclay legend, and we love Frank, and it'll be great to have these conversations ongoing as well, Jasmine. I was thinking this is something that should be potentially Legant should be listening in, and the presidents and mayors should be encouraged to participate and provide this. This is important, and maybe the operational arm of Legant should push this because we should mandate this, I think.
Yeah, good point, Sid. We've spoken to Legant, and I think we're trying to get some entry points in relation to how best to develop the positive beauty framework, because there are 24 protected attributes here, but maybe start with the top 3, which is disability, race, and sex discrimination, and then consider the rest from the intersectional perspective. So, yep, definitely work in progress, and the advocacy coming from you would definitely push us forward, perhaps. Sarah?
Thanks, Jasmine. I just wanted to mention, so we had this event on Tuesday. Jasmine was kindly a guest speaker. It was a disability awareness and confidence building training for inclusion in the workplace. We had about 60 attendees, including the disability minister, a number of CEOs, agency executives, NT government, and we had a 5 out of 5 star rating for powerful and thought-provoking, something like a 4.5 star for overall satisfaction, completely designed and delivered by people with disability. For me, there can be no replacement. And Jasmine, thank you so much for coming along and being a part of that. And it was really wonderful, the feedback I'm getting from everybody. I'm still getting emails flooding in saying, oh, this was so amazing. We're still thinking about it. So I think the power of lived experience, that really showed that, really. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. So HPA, that's an ongoing project. We will be working with Michelle and a number of the other IEA providers to kind of build on what they're doing. But to get that attendance and that response was remarkable, and a credit to everybody, my design team, who all have disabilities and all been working together. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. It was really, as I said, my heart felt very full on that day when you had that session, because of all the voices that were shared, coming from lived experience, but also giving us how people sort of push through in the adversity of it all and still achieve. look, I'm mindful of time, and I think with the energy in this group and the fact that we are having all these invitations being put to get to the territory for some of you who are not here, I think that the commission organizes what's called the positive duty oration. And so we've been focusing on different attributes. We had sex discrimination with Commissioner Anna Cordy here. The first year we had it in 24, and in 25, we had Giri Sivaradhan, your race discrimination commissioner, to talk about race. So I think next year is timely for disability. And so with that disability oration, and I'm just putting it out here. I've not even talked to my team about this yet, but I think that would be the focus, which would then, and very nicely sort of bring all the energy of people that are here to the territory, and to sort of perhaps run those workshops alongside what we're trying to do with our communities. So I'd like to just sort of bring this session to an end because we are slightly over time, but just a big thank you to Rhiannon, Ricki, and Michelle for sharing your insight. I think what you've shared with us in terms of the equality project. I like the format that you've taken, where you've got a clear ambassador who manages a lot of the public facing coming from the lived experience. You've got your employer network, which really goes to show that it's not just about the commission doing that work, but you're sort of co-designing it with your ambassador and the lived experience with the employer. And then you've got the online knowledge hub, which is really a portal which allows, well, the employers, but also those within that space to engage. And then you've got your pilot employment programs, which is amazing in terms of the evidence base of what's working and what's not. And Michelle with YouthWorX, you're the evidence base of a pilot employment program yourself, which YouthWorX was perhaps demonstrate as part of your positive duty performance here in the Northern Territory. Ricki, I really sort of like the fact that you have talked about how it's really important to think about giving everyone affordability in terms of identity, because that is absolutely the point that we're trying to sort of change here in terms of culture. It's not that we're providing a quota tick box for someone with disability to be at the workplace, but for their identity to become visible in all its context of who they are in the workplace. And especially when you sort of talk about the health aspects, I think that's really an intersection that needs to be better understood. And we really welcome your message stick in person in next year when you get here, because as you said, the knowledge contributor aspect is what's changing the narrative in this space. And Michelle, I really love the fact that you talked about how you turn intent into confident action. I think that aspect of actually positive duty, and let's just be more specific with the disability space, it's about really creating that level of confidence for the organization to actually even move into that space and be more welcoming and more accommodating in terms of needs of people with disability. And I think, and that's a sort of narrative we need to hear more rather than the KPIs and the tick boxing, because that's exactly what the Anti-Discrimination Commission here has been advocating, where it's not about fear of compliance, but pride in leadership, in how you sort of bring in these hard concepts. And I like the fact that you've used the point built in, not bolted on, because that's what we talk about. It's very much strength-based. And clearly, as you've all said, inclusion is a continuing conversation. So I hope we can continue this conversation next year when we do have the oration, but also between now and then, I think there are lots of connections have been made here. So for the community that's listening in, you know who to reach out to, aside from just us here at the Anti-Discrimination Commission. So with that, I'd close the session and keep engaged.